Hey everybody, we're back to start a new character on a brand new game. And what I mean by that is, I'm playing here on the 1.1 version of Sil that was released while our stealth archer character Arrow was busily slaying Morgoth. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen those. And I was technically playing the game quite a bit when I should have been recording videos before, but I'm not completely foreign to the changes here and stuff, and a bunch of stuff has been added. That's why it was a point release. Some things got nerfed, and then a whole bunch of new stuff was added. So I figure there's a certain character type that I've been playing with recently that I'm just going to do a run with, and we'll see how far we get. And I'll explain some of the changes along the way, because the early game especially has changed quite a bit. And I was going to say, one of the things I really have noticed about Sil is usually with most roguelikes, once I finish them, I don't really ever go back. Like NetHack, I ascended a couple of times, but the second time took me like 2 years. And then Angband, I think I finished the game with like my second character I ever made or something. And then I just never really played that much again. But this one I just keep coming back. So it's pretty addictive. And I think it's because it's short. I don't want to start. Let's start a new character. But yeah, it's probably my worst addiction right now, which I guess isn't too bad. So the character type I'm going to build is sort of aimed at stealth, like what we did with the archer, except it's aimed at being like a stabby, critical hit kind of character. But the way we build it is in such a way that if you get midway through the game and it doesn't look like stabbing's really going to work out, or you find a piece of equipment that will help you a lot in some other way, you can switch. So it's more of a reactive playstyle. And the other thing we're not going to do of a lot this game is smithing. Smithing has undergone some major changes in 1.1. Forges specifically have been kind of forced to appear in sort of a linear fashion, like every few floors, instead of kind of randomly appearing wherever. So in our Stealth Archer case, we actually didn't really luck out that well with our forge distribution. But we still made a whole ton of artifacts. And in the new versions of Sil, more forges show up early when you're not super buffed as a smith. And so I think the number of artifacts you'll be able to make is going to definitely go down. But that won't matter for this character. So what we do is we put in 6 points into melee, because we always want to fight. I think it's 3 or 4 in evasion, 3 in stealth, and then just a couple in smithing. Dash. I feel like I'm making like plum jam or something. Sure, we did a female last time. Let's go male. I can't think of anything clever to write here. Hello. So 151. Okay. How about we call it Pioneer? I don't know. It's our pioneering character in Sil 1.1. I can always change the name later. Just so you know, if you go to the character sheet and hit change name, you can change it. Okay, so now in terms of skills, what we're going to do is we'll take... okay. So when I used to do this build, I would always take charge. Always. Because charge was insanely powerful. It would I said in a previous video, it doubles your damage dice, or at least it did. The problem was that everybody took it all the time. And like, I'm not going to lie, I never took follow through, I never took zone of control. I occasionally took stun and knockback with certain builds. I don't think I've ever taken whirlwind attack. Almost never take throwing mastery. Rarely take these in the early game. So the change to charge made it such that it's not immediately amazing anymore. What it does is it lets you hit as if you had 3 points more strength and dexterity. The dexterity thing's always great because it increases your chance to hit and your chance to critical. But the 3 points to strength is the critical thing that actually increases your damage. But it means you actually need like a pretty heavy weapon to use it. So, I mean, charge is pretty far down the list. It's implied that, by the ability list, it's implied that, it's a more later game ability, or at least mid-game. And now I think that's kind of true. I think the best way to use this would be to maybe get a low smithing investment like what we did. Make like a really heavy greatsword at your first forge, and then charge becomes useful. But for our character, depending on the equipment, it's really not that useful. It's not that much different. So what I like to take instead is finesse. And finesse basically lets you critical more often. I've explained the math behind critical hits in one of the early videos. But basically, it just your number of critical hits is based on how big of a melee roll you get, and it divides usually 7 plus your weapon weight into it. Now it's going to divide 6 plus our weapon weight into it, and whatever the result is, that's how many criticals you get. So I start with Finesse, which by itself is actually pretty awesome. And then I take Disguise, because Disguise helps you stay out of sight. Like, this is pretty significant. And what else do I take? Oh yeah, Weaponsmith. One more thing I want to mention is that Disguise is a precursor to Vanish, which is like pretty much the only reason I ever got it. It is really good on its own. And now the way Vanish works has changed, and I'll explain that as we play. But Vanish now really isn't... Before, it was common for players to rush to it. Now you definitely don't need to rush to it because it doesn't help you that much. Alright, so let's get moving. It's always great. This is one of the best finds, leather armor on the right at the beginning, and it's super light. Recall that we want light armor weight as a stealth character. And our goal right now is to get to the first forge, which now always has 3 uses, so I don't have to bitch and complain about how many uses the first forge has. I'm going to take this along with me in case I get hit by an acid trap. And yeah, we're going to go to the first forge and make some equipment that is perfectly weighted for our character. So there are a whole new bunch of sticky curses too in 1.1, but I think because of the 1d5 that means this is probably leather armor protection. Yeah. But be careful, it's much more dangerous just to like auto wield things now in the early game. The problem is it's super heavy, and 1 point, well, we still don't have any stealth penalty, so I'll keep it. Just gonna drop out the shitty one. Let's go look over here. And right now, Finesse won't be all that helpful because our weapon is quite heavy. Our ideal weapon weight for this character for a one-handed weapon is 2 pounds because we have 2 strength. And we're going to soon make something of that sort. Don't forget, well, I have armor now, but don't forget at 50 feet, if you don't manage to find armor, these things can actually kill you, so don't just do what I just did and dash into the crowd. It's a lighter pair. And we're finding all kinds of armor this time around. That's a lot of wolves. Get out of here. My new least favorite thing is monsters that really like get in your face, and then you hit them, and they run away at super speed. That's so annoying. Like, why would you... It's not so annoying that they run away at super speed, it's annoying that they keep coming back and doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's not as bad when you have projectiles, but we're not any kind of archer build this time, so... One thing that didn't happen in 1.1 that I thought would happen is that archery really hasn't been nerfed yet. They're still trying to figure out how to balance that, because the ideal is that characters who don't specialize in archery should still be able to use it pretty effectively, but we don't want, like, even I don't really want a game in which I can do what I did last time, which was basically walk into Morgoth's Hall and gun him down like it was some kind of mob hit, and he didn't get a chance to react really, so I'm sure they'll figure it out. They're pretty good at these things. I thought the charge modification was actually really smart. That was a really clever way to do it, because it kind of is symmetrical with the way that like rapid attack and our, what's that ability we used? Rapid fire. Things that give you 2 attacks usually reduce your strength and dexterity for that hit, and so it kind of is fitting that something that gears you up for one big attack would do the opposite. Alright, so now we're on the lookout. Where are these orcs going? What are they doing? I wonder if mold spores actually make noise. I think it's just because I walked away from the wall. And this centipede, usually I don't want to fight these things until I forged my good equipment, because it's not that fun to fight them right now. There we go. Well, let's see if I can get away from these orcs. There's a lot of them. Oh shoot. I didn't think they would do that. I'm not too worried because I have decent armor. There are a lot of orcs on this floor and I don't want to have to... I wouldn't mind doing this fight, you know, after I'd forged my good stuff. This is just going to take forever now. Well, I have experience. I should probably... Let's take some more evasion. Just Oh my god, kill this bloody bat. So what I was trying to do... Oh, Wicked a shield. What I was trying to do there when I was running for those orcs is something that changed in this version, is that if you get out of sight, you actually have a chance for monsters to become unwary. So before you needed to have Vanish for that to happen. Like, it just... If you woke up a monster, it would forever chase you and make noise until you killed it. Unless you had Vanish. Vanish gave you the ability to let monsters forget about you. Now what's happened is that there's some chance that they'll do that anyways, and Vanish just increases that chance. So what that does do is it makes Vanish a little bit less useful for people who don't put too much investment into stealth. But what it does do for a character like this build, which is awesome, is that I'm already investing a lot of points into stealth, and it lets me Vanish without having to invest in Vanish, which I love. Like, that's already saved my life a whole bunch of times. So I'm okay with it. There's been some question from some players who play pacifist builds, because those usually don't have a lot of experience to mess with. This is a lot of worms. Okay, where might the forge be? I just don't want these worms to stop me from getting to the forge. That would really wreck my day. I'm not going to be able to kill them fast enough though, so let's just get out of here. Get out of here, Scout. I was hoping there'd be some way for me to quarantine them. My cloak is better. Where did they put this forge? Alright, I guess it's on the right side of the map. And I think there's an alternate route, so... Well, this is getting pretty intense in here. Okay, there. So now they can't take over the level, unless some orc scout goes and decides to open a door he shouldn't open. Sure. The other thing that I've been playing around with on these kinds of builds are throwing weapons, because they are really good. Okay, I just don't want to get surrounded by these things. Luckily, I found like awesome equipment for this depth. Like having a shield and leather armor at this depth is great. A helm would be even better, but... Did I kill them? I think one of them got away. Although I imagine he'd be howling by now. Oh, there was a potion I didn't pick up. Oh, yeah. So that's another change that happened. Before, I think I mentioned in a previous game that, you know, if you find a weapon of like Orc Slain in the early game, it's super helpful. And we were carrying around all these weapons that we were juggling of Orc Slain and Wolf Slain and all this crap. What's happened now is that there are only 3 kinds of special weapons, and all those slain things have more or less gone away. Maybe 4. So now there's like weapons of Doriath that slay wolves and spiders, I think. Weapons of Gondolin that slay orcs and trolls. And then weapons of something that begins with an N, Nartha Gragrand or something, that slay Roko and I guess something else, I don't remember what else. And then Final Rest still exists, but it gives you free action too. So they kind of consolidated all these weapon types, which is awesome because usually I'll just drop weapons that have slays on them because it's not worth filling up my inventory. But now that they're consolidated like that, it makes them more generally useful, and yeah, I like them a lot. So I suspect that the spear we found is, I don't know, something useful. But for now, let's make our weapons kit. You can see this forge has 3 uses because the first forge at 100 feet now always has 3 uses. After this, though, they do have a variable number. So what I want first is a longsword that weighs exactly 2 pounds. And this will be our primary weapon that we use with the shield. It does good damage. We can still stay pretty well protected. Yeah, okay. And it gets us out of most jams. The next thing I want to make is, I used to make a bastard sword. Sorry, a great sword. The problem with the great sword though is it doesn't really synergize really well with finesse because it's so damn heavy. So I think the lightest I could get it is 4.7. So that's still pretty heavy. And I mean, ideally I'd like to have one that weighs 2 plus or 5 times 3. No, 5 times 1.5. 15, 7.5. I'd like a 7.5 pound greatsword in case I'm ever in like a bind and I have to quaff a potion of strength, in which case I'll have 5 strength. That'll make this weight really useful. But that doesn't happen in the early game. And we do meet monsters that, you know, having a heavy weapon or a weapon with multiple dies really helps a lot. An example is those stupid centipedes. Usually with the centipedes, you have to sit there and wait to critical. But with the longsword, you just get like an extra d5 or something. It's not great. Whereas with the bastard sword, you're already hitting with multiple die, and it's much easier to get through the protection. The green centipedes aren't terrible, but it's the red centipedes, because they're fast and they actually hit pretty hard. You want to kill them quickly. You don't want to just sit there all day long waiting to roll a critical. So I like to get a bastard sword that is like really light. Oops. Usually I go 3 pounds. That way, if I do get a point of strength somewhere or whatever, it's still useful one-handed. But for two-handed, it's perfect because 2 times 1.5 is 3. Yeah, so that's a lot of nerd math, but this is my rationale behind making these 2 things. I've seen other people in this situation make a great spear. I think there's a guy on the forums, Clouded, who usually makes a great spear. At this point, I actually don't understand why. I have a couple of ideas why, but I'd like, Clouded, if you're watching this, I always meant to ask you, and I just realized I forgot. The last thing I like to make here, you can probably guess, is a matok, because starting at 200 feet, you can start finding rubble. And it also doubles as like a super heavy weapon if you get into trouble. Yeah. Like if you get into a bind, you can always drink a potion of dexterity and a potion of strength, and then this thing becomes deadly. So let's go with that. And that's our first kit. So I think for now I'm going to run with the bastard sword without a shield. And then if we get into some trouble, I'll flip the shield on. And the other good thing about the bastard sword is if you do get into trouble and you need to flip your shield on in a hurry, you can still keep using it. Like you can just wear your shield and you can use it one-handed as well. Whereas with the greatsword, it takes 2 turns to switch to your longsword and your shield, and if there are people in your face, that's 2 turns that they can hit you on. So I like the bastard sword, it's versatile. And it gives me justification to say the word bastard. Alright, so let's run down to 150. And from here on in, we're just going to focus on buffing up our melee, our stealth, and our evasion. Usually once I hit around 10, I start thinking about what to do next. But you can see we're just like, we'll chew through these things now. Because 3d7 is actually pretty scary for an orc soldier. Poor little guys. Oh, this is terrible. I hate smashing these doors open. Usually in the early game, I actually just go around. But I'm a little over-caffeinated right now, so I think I'm being irrational. So I've had some other people comment, like, how do you survive the early game without keen senses? Because keen senses lets you see an extra square of light around. And there's a lot of things that helps you do. In rooms like this, it kind of prevents you from walking out into the open when there's like 30 orc soldiers here and you don't know. And then they all see you. But it also helps you avoid purple molds, which in the early game, they drain your constitution. And so they can just be waiting around a corner. Luckily, the number of purple molds got reduced by half again in this build, because I think people just find them annoying and not really that fun. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I do get hit. But I found with purple molds, like, sometimes they'll just park in a stupid place where even if you had infinity light, you'd walk into them. So keen senses isn't really a guarantee, and I'd rather get Lore Master and Lore Keeper earlier. So that's the reasoning behind that. I'm sure there are other smarter people who make better decisions. This, nah. Cloudy Potion. Yeah, the place where I got the idea of forging a bastard sword as like a kind of an idealized heavy weapon in the early game was I was always there were battle axes everywhere in the early game usually, and I was relying on those to get through like the high protection situations I was talking about before. The problem is they have such a huge melee penalty, and they're usually light anyways, that I thought, well, if I have to wear a light weapon that has a huge penalty, I might as well make it a sword, because I get, elves get that melee affinity. That's what this +1 is for all the time. Not melee affinity, sorry. Sword affinity. Oh yeah, so heavy weapons are actually really good on these spiders too, because your protection, they hit so hard that protection doesn't really do much for you. And that's clearly a Spear of Doriath, because it's lit up. See, I told you, throwing weapons are really good. What was I saying? I don't remember. Something about melee. Oh yeah, it's not a melee bonus, it's a blades bonus. That was a teeny floor. And I just walked into a whole group of orcs, but somehow they didn't see me. Oh, now they saw me. Just want to make sure there's nothing back here. Ah! I just miskeyed. I wanted to use a torch, not a... Can you imagine going to like light a torch and just found out you accidentally drank liquor? Like, that's a pretty big mistake. Okay, I'm going to switch to my shield now because I'm getting raffle stomped. Get out of my house. They'll probably just run down the stairs. Oh, my shield is lighter. Let's get melee. I tend to prefer melee over the other two at first, because unless you can hit things, you're not that useful. I'm going to switch over to the spear here to see if it'll self-identify. But usually with a low perception character, this takes like forever. So, and it does a really good job at killing wolves. So. Okay. Stay away from that. Clearly there's a secret door there, but I'm never going to find it, so. Whenever you smash open a door like that, it's actually pretty good just to back up first. That's how one of the ways I compensate for not having keen senses, actually. When you smash out here, you may have woken some things up, and the game won't tell you because you can't see them. So unless you hear something shout, you won't know. So I like to back up a few squares to see if they'll kind of get lured into the corridor instead of getting surrounded. Okay, so there's clearly a monster over here, but I don't think they've seen me. Oh, I spoke too soon. you don't want to engage those green worms like what I just did there. You don't want to give them a chance to get like 3 turns next to you, because they will burn your equipment. Although somebody said something hilarious recently, which apparently if you're wearing like cursed gloves and you remove your weapon or something and you punch the acid worm, they'll burn off. So that's kind of cute. I'm not sure if it works or not, but give it a shot. Get out of here. Uh-oh. Okay, archers. This is the one thing that is, at this point, are not fun. I might actually just leave the level. Just because it's so annoying. Like, you'll burn so many turns trying to kill them. And because there's so much darkness, arrows in the dark are terrible. Oh, there's a lot of works here. Let's see if they'll flank me. No, okay. This is just no fun. I'm gonna get out of here. Yeah, don't be afraid to leave the level if you have to. Like, it's better than starting over. It does burn turns, but ah. Did this orc see me too? Oh, it's the friggin' Kerbane. Alright, this might be another case where I have to leave the level. Sorry, guys. Another change that was made, because I bitched and complained about it. I think I said this in a previous video, but I was like pissed that dragonflies had way too much HP. Like, just kind of a weird number that was really high. Now, so all insects in the game, well, not spiders, but dragonflies, centipedes, all those guys now have, I think, 2d4 hit points. Kind of unified it. Holy smoke, that was a good one. I just think it's hilarious that I've complained about this before. Like, my elf is sitting there, he has a spear in his hand. When there are wolves around, it glows. When he kills them, it stops glowing. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Although I guess he doesn't have the advantage that I have of killing, like, hundreds of his compatriots. Seen a few things. War is hell, man. Greaves, no thanks. The fact that there is a clear worm mass in here probably means that there are more I don't see, which means they may like invade the level, so I'm just gonna try and get out of here and quarantine the room. Do I have gloves yet? No. Oh, whoa, those don't have a melee penalty. That's pretty cool. Usually gauntlets give you a -1 to hit. I'm totally gonna wear those. Somebody's been boozing down here. Why is I don't think I've had this many locked doors in a dungeon, like, of life. Let's go over here. Let's see if we'll figure it out this time. Nope. Where's my longsword? I'm getting tired of trying to figure out where these things are. So now I can just type W0 and I'll switch. See? This is why it's great having a talk here. Okay, let's go this way. Usually my rule of thumb is I like, for the first few 100 feet, I like to be 100 feet ahead of the clock, which in the first few floors is hard because the clock is really fast. Damn it, I did not want to hit that thing. Ah, that's what I didn't want to happen. Curse on you and all your children. Although I guess you won't have children now because I just killed you. What was I saying? Oh, okay, the downstairs is here. That's not so bad. Man, I gotta say, I'm really bad for memory. Oh yeah, I like to stay 100 feet ahead of the clock, basically. Although that does get me into trouble later on. Because usually I get to a point where I'm just starting to feel comfortable with the build, and all of a sudden everything can kill me. Okay, so here's where I'm going to stop here, I think, for the day. But you can see I'm kind of flying through the first few floors. I know with the protection build I did like way back in the second series, I mentioned it was like a build with higher survivability and stuff. But it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't really fit my playstyle. I'm much happier with stealth. So I can usually get to 500 feet really quickly now, just by hiding a lot and picking my fights. What I have noticed though, the goal for this character is to be able to do a lot of critical hits, provided that we find the correct kind of equipment. There are a few artifact short swords that are awesome. Death blades are really awesome if you can get them. Death blades used to be a lot easier to get if you get charge, like the old style charge. That's why I used to get it. It was it was worth it just to get death blades, because you could just buff your ears out, pick up like a really heavy Matok, and then kill them in one hit, and you'd have a death blade. Whereas now it's difficult. I've almost killed like 3 characters recently trying to get one. But what I used to do with a build like this in the early game, if you're trying to make a stealthy, stabby kind of person, the obvious thing to do is go for assassination early. Because assassination basically gets your stealth score and adds it to your melee when you're attacking somebody that's sleeping or unwary. It's awesome. It does crazy damage. What I've noticed though is I make bad decisions when I have assassination. Like I'll be at 500 feet and I'll see something that's supposed to be at 750 feet, like maybe I'm in a vault and I have an amulet of danger or something. And I start thinking, okay, that thing's really bad, but if I sneak up next to it, it doesn't see me, and I stab it, I'll probably kill it, or I'll maybe be able to run away, but there's a pretty good chance I'll kill it. Okay, that is not a good way for me to play. So I find now, if I force myself to wait until like the late game to take assassination, like around 800 feet or so, the first thing it does is keep me alive, which is kind of, I guess, counterintuitive, because you think, more abilities give you more options, which gives you like more versatility in dangerous situations. But for me, assassination just creates dangerous situations for me, so I avoid it until later. The other good thing it does though is it doesn't lock you into using the stealth stabby style for the whole game. I might get to a point at like 700 feet. This happened to me in a previous game where I found a spear that has like crazy abilities on it. So I think now I'm going to change gears in that build and take polearm mastery and maybe figure something out from there. Something that does more crowd control instead of something that does like raw single target damage. So this build is a bit more versatile than the ones we've played before. Especially like when you pick a smithing character, you're versatile in the sense that you get to pick your equipment, but you're I usually, once I have smithing, I have like an idea of what I want and I'm just trying to get it. Whereas this kind of play I find more relaxing because I just kind of take what the game gives me and I, take the lemons and make lemonade sort of deal. So this character probably won't survive. I do I don't know, like 1 out of every 10 usually makes it to the throne room, but who knows? We'll see where we get with this guy. You'll get the gist of the build and how it works, and I find these guys really fun to play, so that's that. I'm going to check out here, and I'll see you guys next time.